But these other apartments were densely crowded, and in them beat feverishly the heart of life. And the revel went railing on until at length there commenced the sounding of midnight upon the clock. And then the music ceased, as I have told, and the evolutions of the waltzers were quiet, and there was an uneasy cessation of all things as before. But now there were 12 strokes to be sounded by the bell on the clock, and thus it happened. Perhaps that more of thought creep with more of time into the meditations of the thoughtful among those who relive, and thus too it happened. Perhaps that before the last echoes of the last chime had utterly sunk into silence, there were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of the presence of the masked figure which has arrested the attention of no single individual before. And the rumor of this news present have spreading itself whisperingly around. There arose at length from the whole company a buzz or murmur expressive of disapprobation and surprise, then finally of terror, of horror, and of disgust. In an assembly of phantoms such as I have painted, it will be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such sensations. In truth, the masquerade license of the night was nearly unlimited, but the figure in questions had out Herod and gone beyond the bounds of even Prine's indefinite decorum. There are chords in the heats of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion, even when they utterly lost. To all life and death are equally jests. There are matters of which no jest can be made. The whole company indeed seemed now deeply to feel that in custom and bearing of the stranger needed with no appropriate exist. The figure was tall and gaunt, and shirted from head to foot in the habiliments of the grave. The mask which concealed the bishop was so made so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse that closest scrutiny must have been difficult in detecting to cheat. And yet, all this might have been endured if not approved by the mad rebels around. But the number had gone so far as to assume the type of the Red Death. His vesture was deep in blood, and his broad brow with all assumed the type of the Red Death. With all the fears on the face was sprinkled with the scarlet horror. When the eyes of Prince Prospero fell upon this spectral image, he was seen to be convulsed in the first moment with a strong shuddering air of terror and distaste, but in the next his brow reddened with rage. "Who dares?" he demanded hoarsely of the courtiers who stood near him. "Who dares insult us with this blasphemous mockery?" Seize him anathemas, that we may know when we have to hat and sunrise from the battlements. It was in an easter, or blue chamber, in which stood the Prince Prospero, and he uttered these words. They rang throughout the 7 rounds lonely and clear, for the prince was a bold and a robust man, and the music had become hushed at the waving of his hand. It was in the blue room where stood the prince, with a group of pale courtiers by his side. At first, as he spoke, there was a slight rushing movement of this group in the direction of the intruder, who at the moment was also near at hand, and now, with deliberate and stately step, made closer approach the speaker. But from a certain nameless away, which the mad assumption of the number has inspired of the whole party. There were found none who put forth band to seize him, so that in Nupipet he paces within a yard of the prized person, and while the vast assembly, as if one half his pulse, shrank from the centres of the rooms to the walls, he made his uninterruptedly, but with the same solemn and measured step which had distinguished him from the first, through the blue chamber to the purple. throw the purple to the green, throw the green to the orange, throw this again to the white, and even then to the violet. Artie's side movement and having arrested him. It was then, however, that the Prince Prospero, maddening with rage and the shame of his own momentary cowardice, rushed hurriedly through the 6 chambers, while none followed him on account of deadly terror that has sights upon all. He bore aloft a drawn dagger, and had approached in rapid impetuosity to within 3 or 4 feet of the retreating figure, when the latter, having attained the extremity of the velvet apartment, turned suddenly and confronted his pursuer. There was a sharp cry, and the dagger dropped gleaming upon the simple carpet, upon which instantly afterwards fell prostrate in death to the Prince Prospero. Then, summoning the wild courage of despair, a tongue of the relievers at once threw themselves into the black apartment, and seizing the mummer, whose that figure stood erect and motionless with the shadow of the ebony clock, gasped in unutterable horror at finding the wave cerements and corpse-like mass, with they handily wide so violent and rudeness, untinting but any tangible form. And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the relievers into the broad bedded holes of the rebel, and died each the despairing posture of his fall. And the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gay, and the flames of the tripod spars and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitedly dominion over all.